afternoon. I know we are standing between you and lunch, but I was just speaking to Dr. Ari about the fact that it is lunchtime, but we need to have an important conversation. So it's a conversation that we've all been waiting for. We have questions. Even as the moderator, I have questions, but I will reserve it to the discussions that we'll be having shortly. So without further ado, I would like to invite you to this session on packaging in a circular economy in Kenya, EPRguidelines, innovation and the future of waste management. An important conversation that we've all been waiting for, and just the other day we had the groundbreaking enactment and gazettement of the Extended Producer Responsibility regulations that we've all been waiting for. And just picking up from the last session, where the founding leader of the National Environment Management Authority reflected on the fact that we've had very nice, beautiful policies over the years, and what is the status. So as we start, let's keep that in mind. We had the groundbreaking Sustainable WasteManagement Act in July of 2022. How far have we come with it? And now that we have the Extended Producer Responsibility regulation, how ready are we to drive its implementation to its effective conclusion? So, and because we also have very limited time, I would want to go straight to the question. And my panelists, before you start making your contribution, I would request that you just make a brief introduction of yourself, and then you go straight to the question at hand. Is that okay? Great. So our first question obviously goes to Dr. Ayub Macharia from the National Environment Management Authority, and I hope you'll also double up as the representative from the Ministry of Environment. And this is around the EPRguidelines and eco-levy. Just the other day, we were requested for a memorandum on the introduction of an eco-levy. I know it collapsed with the Finance Bill of 2024, but I mean, there are assertions that it's been reintroduced. So Dr. Ayub, we are starting on a very high gear. How will these new EPR regulations impact businesses across various material streams in Kenya? And specifically, there is the 150 shillings in the EPR regulations. How is this going to transform the sector, but also impact on businesses? So welcome, Dr. Ayub.
Thank you. Good afternoon. About myself, my name is Ayub Macharia. I work at the National Environment Management Authority as the director in charge of enforcement. I was also asked to represent the ministry. Fortunately, NEMA is a parastatal within the ministry, and I worked in the ministry for 6 years when we were developing the Sustainable Waste Management Act and the EPR regulations. And another document which is not mentioned a lot, but very important, is a Sustainable Waste Management Policy of 2021. So those were documents that I spearheaded when I worked at the ministry. So those documents were formulated by the ministry because I was there. About the EPR law, Kenya is celebrating now because 10 days ago, the EPR regulations were gazetted. Yesterday I was with the lawyer who, from the ministry, and we were worried about the last step. The last step is presenting the regulation to Parliament, and she confirmed that she has already, the ministry has already given the copy to the clerk. And so everything is finished. So Kenya has EPR regulations now and has followed all the procedures. Will it affect business? Yes and no. The EPR regulations gives a lot of responsibility to the private sector, to the producers, to decide what they want to do with their products when after the consumer level. The government has not prescribed any fee at that level. Actually, the fee that the government is going to receive is 5% of what the private sector has received from the producer. So we will be given, NEMA will be given money to do monitoring, control, audit by the producer responsibility organizations. As to how much money that is, including the formula that was used, the private sector have been given that leeway to sit like the way we are in a room and agree that for that product, based on the formula, which is also given in the law, and those are facts, that if you have a product, you check the volumes, you check the recyclability, reusability, you check whether it has any toxins, you also check about logistics of moving that material around. You also consider the obligations, the EPR obligations, because there are things that the producer has to do. And based on all that, then it will determine how much money to pay as EPR fee to the producer responsibility organization. Now, remember the keyword here is how the nature of your product. For instance, if somebody has packaged using a carton or hard plastics, HDPE, or you have metal, for example, or glass, you see already the market, in the market today, even without EPR, these things were moving. So how much EPR fee is that person supposed to pay? Very little, because maybe for monitoring, because the market is already in operation. They are already in high demand. But somebody who has, for instance, a diaper, it was not moving at all. So you have to carry the whole baggage of moving that material. And those are the only people, those are the only sectors that may be impacted negatively by the EPR law. Otherwise, those who have good materials that are recyclable, they are laughing all the way. Nothing has happened. Actually, they will be happy because now there will be order in the sector. Peers have been brought together by law in a room and they can talk about their product. So in conclusion, I would say that it's a good law. It is not punitive to the sector. It's only punitive to those who are giving the government a hard time. The sectors that are occupying our dam sites because their products are not useful at all. They were designed in the first place as waste. Those are the only ones who will feel the pinch. But those with good products, nothing will happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. And you make a good point there, because the front runners in these discussions around EPR have mainly been the packaging industry, and like you say, a lot of those products are already moving in the market. But if you look at the 5 categories in the first schedule, especially the last one, like diapers that you mentioned, they have not really been in the room around this EPR regulation. So there is really some work that needs to be done around getting all those in that first schedule in the category 1 to 5 to start looking at how they are going to comply. And thank you for the response. Now, to Tetra Pak, when you stood up here, Shireen, you mentioned bits and pieces around the enablers, the levies, the taxes, and even the policy framework. So from your perspective and having engaged within the Kenyan market, you've seen the transition from way back when some levies were imposed and movements has been happening. So in your view as a big business in the Kenyan market, what are your thoughts around these levies, these taxes? Are they enabling this transition to a circular economy, and how best can they be used as levers to catapult us to a sustainable, safe environment for all?
Thank you very much for this important question. Greetings to Dr. Macharia. Always a pleasure to see you, and greetings to my esteemed panelists. I think this is a very important question, not only for Tetra Pak and its customers, but the entire ecosystem. We really support an EPR implementation in Kenya. We do believe that this is the only pathway for a collection and recycling ecosystem, and that everyone has to have a role in it. However, enforcing tax policies that could be really cumbersome or can really curb any sustainability investment from the private sector, and putting pressure on the consumer and the producer could at a certain point disable this entire ecosystem. So what I'm trying to say is we need to make sure that we design policies that are eco-friendly and bring the consumer as well as producer into a gradient, as well as maybe a phased approach versus a mandatory penalizing the first movers. So you mentioned that there are certain first movers like Tetra Pak who started 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, and we are all placed in the same level play field as new entrants. So definitely in other markets, the best practice is usually to integrate the initiative of the voluntary sector into the EPR collection and recycling levy, and also ensure that the consumer has access to these products, and we don't really raise the price of this product and become inaccessible to the regular consumer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shireen. Now to KEPSA. I know you've convened a lot of stakeholder engagements around this transition to a circular economy. What would you say are the key challenges, and juxtapose it to the opportunities now? And you can also reflect on the fact that we've been pushing and advocating for these regulations. We have the Sustainable Waste Management Act. What would you say have been the challenges of implementing this law 2 years after its implementation? Is it a success? And how are we going to do it differently with the EPR regulation? What challenges should we anticipate, and probably how best should we do it differently to ensure that it's actually fit for purpose?
Thank you so much for that question. And just to introduce myself, as I said, I represent KEPSA. KEPSA, we are the apex body representing the private sector. That is, we do represent SMEs, micro SMEs. We do represent the multinationals and the parastatals. And we have a huge database of over 2 million members and over 45 million members through the International Chamber of Commerce, the Kenyan chapter. The reason why I've mentioned those numbers is because where I sit as the head of circular economy and climate change within KEPSA, we have been key in terms of doing the work of translating and creating awareness on matters to do the EPR. So there has been what we call teething problems, especially around the issues of adoption and the implementation of sustainable practices based on the new EPR regulations as the private sector. So some of the challenges that we have faced pertain to obviously the issues of infrastructure. Infrastructure here, I'm talking about infrastructure pertaining to the whole value chain. So as much as we are talking about even disposable bags and the rest, we need to have the whole value chain obviously infrastructural wise created in terms of even have segregation at source, having these waste trucks being divided in, being segregated when they are collecting the waste and taking it to the dump site where also it is obviously segregated. So now what we are seeing currently is, as much as we are advocating for segregation, maybe using eco-friendly packaging and the rest, and even from the source, as much as we want to reduce waste in our landfills, we find that some of these waste collectors, the trucks, they have not been confined. So that is one infrastructure in terms of, you find all these waste that people are segregating, they end up being mixed in this truck. So it ends to build up logic. So that infrastructure that we are facing. The other issue is also compliance cost. The cost, especially for SMEs, you find that SMEs incur a lot of cost before they are set up. So when you find that there's an extra cost they need to incur in terms of EPR, which comes to even the issues of recycling, using eco-friendly bags and the rest, some of them are costly, and they shy away due to this cost. The other one is knowledge gap. Knowledge gap has been an issue where people don't have information in terms of being sensitized and what it means in terms of EPR. How will it also benefit you as the producer, as the consumer, and even as a country in general. And remember, EPR, through EPR, if it is properly managed, it can even form part of the ESG reporting, because it is part of your books. You can be able to show, this is how I'm able to manage my waste from the start to the end. And then last but not least also is the issue of policies. Policies, sometimes we've been having contradicting ones here and there. We've been having others that end up playing the same similar role. We had a similar issue when we were talking about the eco-levy sometimes back. Also, we had the EPR. So you find all these, they end up serving the same purpose. And so it begs to differ. Why can't we just have one more concrete than having so many, and then you end up paying in all of them? So those are some of the issues. But in terms of solutions, just to take communities, what I've just mentioned as challenges in terms of creating capacity and awareness, as we are doing in this forum where we are educating people, that is one. So we are trying to solve this problem. The other one is in terms of policies. We have key players here and policymakers in the house. So that means that we need to have people who are able to make policy issues and changes. So we need to have at least a multi-stakeholder approach, which I'm seeing here, where we have key players from all sectors giving their views moving forward. And then the other aspect in terms of infrastructure, this one calls for public-private partnership and even working with NGOs so that we can get more funding to equip our infrastructure, either capacity-wise, because I did have an opportunity to visit Denmark, which is having a very elaborate circular economy system where, in fact, they are going to almost 9 bins of segregation. So they are segregating their waste up to 9 bins. And then when you look at their trucks, the trucks are divided 9 times inside it. And then when you go to the recycling plants, it's the same. So it has made all that process so easy. And then the last but not least is incentivizing. We need the government to incentivize this industry. What I mean by that is, you find in Europe where people even is recycling, they are paid to recycle and take a bottle. You put a bottle somewhere, it gives you maybe a receipt in form of which you can translate and go and do shopping with it. That is for consumer. But for the producers, we need the government also to incentivize them, give them a tax holiday sometimes or something, those who are tax compliant. So those are some of the ways. And last but not least, holding award ceremonies like this to reward good behavior, which is not the norm, because we should not be rewarding good behavior. We expect you to behave good. But now, this is good. At least we are rewarding good behavior, of which is this circular economy is actually doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Now to Joseph from Unilever. I know you are a big mover within the market, experience across the globe where there have been EPR schemes and probably compliant in those other markets. In Kenya, you've been participating in this process as well. So in very practical terms, what has been your experience over the past couple of years under the voluntary scheme, under the semi-mandatory scheme after the enactment of the law, and now that you are looking into a fully fledged mandatory scheme with the numerous products, numerous elements of how you need to be compliant, do you see this as an opportunity to transform the sustainable waste management sector in Kenya? And what is your feeling about this EPR dispensation? And you can also briefly reflect on the eco-levy.
Thank you so much, Moderator Alex. My name is Joseph Sunday. As you've correctly put it, I am in charge of corporate affairs, sustainability and communications for Unilever in the region East and West Africa. So briefly, I know it was a long question, but I'll apply myself to the EPR and the experience so far. So Unilever is the only company in Kenya that has closed circularity in packaging in some of our products. If you look at your sunlight in the household, if you look at your Vim powder, if you look at your Domestos toilet cleaner, that package that you hold whenever you buy it, it's produced, crushed, recycled, and brought back to us to refill. 100% circular, no virgin resin in it, 100% recycled resin, okay? Now, let me quickly jump to how we got there. It requires a lot of R&D investments to get to where you are able to prototype fully recycled packaging that looks exactly the same as a virgin resin packaging. It's a lot of collaboration that is required. It's a lot of commitment and investment. So it took huge amount of time and resources working with our South African experts, collaborating with the Kenyan experts, trial and error, back and forth to get to that prototype that will actually sell off the shelves. There are a bit of challenges, of course, which I'll come up to, and I will call them CCI, consumer perspective, systemic collaboration, because you can't do it alone, and as KEPSA correctly puts it, government incentive. You're already ahead of compliance. You're trying to ensure that you don't wait for the stick. Yeah, it's carrot and stick. Government likes using sometimes the stick approach, but the carrot also works because it's huge investment into creating a circular economy. So if we would get the incentives to bring others into the pool, that will really work for us. But as Dr. Ayub has said, EPR is now here. No more joyriders. People will have to come to the fold and to be able to say, how can we jointly tackle this menace called plastic pollution? And then in terms of eco-levy, I think that if EPR works well, yeah, and we are able to identify how we can pool resources to create discipline and harmony within the circular economy system, then eco-levy would be a duplicated version of what we are trying to achieve through EPR. That's in my view.
Thank you very much, and I know there are lots of questions around this topic, and I invite you to also maybe think about those questions, and we'll come back to the audience. Now, I want to switch gears a bit. I know we have a number of topics we need to discuss around packaging, elimination of harmful packaging, and so on and so forth. But now, on packaging design for circularity, and this is to Seal Africa, you are one of those companies that have moved the needle in terms of designing products that are 100% recyclable. So what are some of these design innovations that you are leading as a company, and you also observe within the Kenyan market to get us to have more recyclable plastic, biodegradable packaging, reusable containers, and how is the market responding to this? Is the market ready, and is it an uptake so that we deal systemically with this problem of plastic pollution?
Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Muthu Ravi. I'm the country CEO for Seal Africa Kenya. Seal Africa is East Africa-based packaging company. So we work across Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania, and also into Mozambique now. Just to get your question there is, the first and most important is that innovation by design. First, we need to say that no waste is a waste. If there is a waste for one of the producer, it may be an input for another company. So there we start the circular, first of all. And then you keep engaging your brand owners, right? And then you keeping the consumer in your focus at the end of the day is the final beneficiary of the product. So how you then design your packaging to be more recyclable. Just to say, as you mentioned rightly, South Africa was the first East African in our entire East African show. All our products are 100% recyclable. We produce from monopolymers. We don't have a mix of this A, B, C, a lot of additives into that. So when we developed our business model, we made a very conscious decision that all our packaging will be 100% recyclable. Then comes from the design part. Okay, you work with your customers. Joseph is here, Unilever. We have been a more than 35 years partner with Unilever in Kenya. So 2 years before we started the journey of lightweighting the product for them. And like I can give example, for dairy industry in Kenya, we were the first company in 2019 to bring 20% reduction on the plastic waste on the material side. So it starts in-house. Innovation starts in-house. The design starts in-house. Because at the end of the day, when it goes to the shelf, it is the brand that speaks, and the consumer is the one who takes that brand and goes. All the works what is behind is within the ecosystem. That's the circular economy. That's what we talk. So sustainability may be a word in the last 5-7 years around the globe, talking too much, but you know, this is there in part of every business house for a long period. Sustainability. Anything you do in your organization is definitely a sustainable way, how you manage the business. Then the most important part is that the other part, recyclable, it is not really recyclable, right? It is about reusable. I think to me, the government, the Sustainable Waste Management Act, like we say, I can just give a small example. Way back, after the World War II in Germany, if you see, they made 100% that all farm products, right, should be transported only through reusable packaging, right? No one-way packaging there. So I think those are all the important things we need to bring through the sustainability initiatives in Kenya, and then slowly it goes into East African market and everything. So how we eliminate single-use packaging in any form, right? It is not only plastic or glass or water or anywhere you pack the product yours. It should be a reusable, and we need to move that. And for that, the consumer sensitives. So that is the most important. As we said, how many companies in Africa, or for that matter in the globe, has got a power to invest so much in R&D? So that comes the knowledge pool sharing with every companies who can part and create a circular ecosystem in this world. I think that's what I would say from a recyclability and a reusability perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mudhu. Now to wrap. Talia, I know you have this global experience around working with the Plastics Pact, and one of the key elements is design. And we just saw earlier when we were talking about let's be clear challenge. So it's not just telling a brand, can you make your product more recyclable, like change the color and things like that. It takes a lot of efforts from the technical, the marketing, and even the C-suite to make that decision, and it's not easy. So what would you say should be the motivation for industry to actually embrace designing for sustainability, designing for circularity, and also just reflecting on EPR here in Kenya is coming full-blown? There would be eco-modulation and things like that. Would this be motivation enough, or what would you say is a business case for designing better products?
Thank you, Alex. So yeah, for those that don't know, my name is Talia Shalev. I work for the International Environmental Action NGO, WRAP. WRAP stands for the Waste and Resources Action Programme. And our focus is on driving circular living across the planet. We do that through key interventions. So one of those models is around the voluntary agreement model, which has been mentioned and previously named as a public-private partnership. And the Kenya Plastics Pact is a really good example of the voluntary agreement model working well in Kenya. Across Africa, you can also see voluntary agreements being delivered around the reduction of food loss and waste in South Africa. And WRAP plays a strategic role in supporting the organizations like SIB who are driving those voluntary agreements. And in the UK, we run our own voluntary agreements. We have the Plastics Pact. We have the Court-Old Commitment, which is around food system transformation. And we also have one around the circularity of textiles and clothing. The motivation around why businesses should do anything is very different depending on the context or the market that you're looking at. EPR is proving to be a really good reason why any business should be designing for recyclability. You talk about eco-modulation. That is a key driver, especially in the UK, for businesses to consider designing for recyclability because their fees will be modulated depending on the changes that they make. But most businesses don't know what good design might look like when they consider recyclability or reusability. And the voluntary agreement allows for that collaboration between competitors and between key stakeholders across the value chain to work together to identify what are those changes that should be made and how can we unblock the challenges together to ensure that that is done without any competitive advantage, and also to make it easier for everyone, because at the end of the day we all have a goal that we're working towards. Especially if you are a member of a voluntary agreement, you have targets that you're committing to, and it is important that you're all working together to achieve that, because otherwise you won't hit your targets. The voluntary agreement also does help with creating design standards, and the organizations that are running the voluntary agreements work very hard to bring in all of the key stakeholders to identify what those opportunities might be. And that will be different depending on the product, depending on the target that you're trying to address. But when it comes to recyclability, and in Kenya the target is to be 100% recyclable, so all plastic packaging that is placed on the market to be 100% recyclable or reusable by 2030. There's a lot of work that needs to be done and a lot of investment that needs to go into that. And so to save money, if you work together and you identify what those opportunities might be that best suit your product portfolio, you might be able to support each other in making those changes quicker and at less of a cost. So if we don't go down the eco-modulated route, and there is just a matter of a fee being assigned to your products, then I would encourage you to be working together more, because you'll get more done quicker.
Thank you very much. And Anita from GreenStem, this question that comes to you, and it's around trying to decipher what is good innovation and what is bad innovation. I know we have a lot of discussions around doing or changing one product to the other, or adding another product which is considered waste into a product, and then what comes out of it is actually something that is not recyclable. So what do we need to do to avoid innovations and packaging alternatives that are not tested well, or are not genuine, or are just, like they say, greenwashing practices? And how do we know what is real and what is not?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Great question. So I'm Anita Shah. I'm the founder and CEO of GreenStem Products Limited. And we are a very young startup. The goal of GreenStem is really to eliminate plastic from the food system where possible, by upcycling agricultural byproduct into completely tree-free, toxic chemical-free and plastic-free food packaging that would basically mimic plastic in terms of functionality, be price competitive as well, and be lightweight and durable. In addition to that, our products are home compostable, biodegradable, and repulpable. So this is an example, for example, of a sugarcane bagasse tray. It looks very similar to a plastic tray that could be used for herbs and that sort of thing. There are no toxic chemicals in here, no bleach, no plastic lining. We invented a bio-based solvent that allows for waterproofing and oil and grease resistance. They work very well in cold storage, in the freezer, for hot foods. We've done all our migration testing, and they're also microwave safe. So this is an example where we can completely eliminate plastic from the food system. So we don't have to worry about recycling, which, as we know, is great, but in Kenya and globally, only 10% of plastic that is used in food packaging is actually systematically collected, sorted, and recycled. And the majority of it is downcycled and it can only be downcycled 4 to 5 times before it eventually ends up in landfill or the ocean, right? So GreenStem's goal was to create something that didn't have to be recycled. It could end up in your home compost and contribute to plant growth. It could end up in a landfill and biodegrade and have no negative impact on the environment. Or if these punnets are brought back to our factory, they can be repulped and turned back into packaging. So and if they are hand washed, they can be reused several times in the household. So that was the goal. In terms of the manufacturing process, we tried to be very circular in that when the sugarcane bagasse arrives and we cook it, we extract the cellulose to make the packaging, but the lignin is an excellent biofuel. So we created a boiler that can combust the lignin to generate heat energy for other production processes combined with solar. And so we only have to use KPLC to run motors and on the night shift. Because we don't use bleach, we don't use toxic chemicals like polyfluoroalkyline, we don't use paraffin wax. All the water can be recycled, so all the water that is used in the pulping system can be recycled, and all the edge trims can be repulped. So the idea was to maximize value from agricultural byproduct that enters the factory, maximize value to generate packaging that is produced in a way that is clean, green, and circular, and then can end up back in nature and contribute to new plant growth. So that's the basic concept.
Yeah.
And and I think GreenStem is an example where we have tried to be very authentic and to, through rigorous testing and certification, be very transparent and really, speak to the principles of traceability and avoid the greenwashing.
Thank you very much. Maybe to just put you on the spot, how scalable is this solution? Because it looks very attractive and enticing. I know everybody's nodding to it.
Yeah, when I started, I emptied my bank account because nobody was going to give me money to prove a concept. This is the first of its kind in Africa, right? So I bought a very tiny machine from India, and I was using palm leaves and bamboo leaves and banana leaves and making plates, bowls, and spoons, and to my enormous surprise, Green Spoon started buying them. So then I started working with the horticulture companies to develop this sort of thing, and we co-developed this product. We then took it to the next phase, and we bought a pilot, quote-unquote pilot or laboratory plant, and we started producing, 50,000 pieces of packaging a month, which is obviously a very small amount, and we're selling it to about 15 or 20 very small clients. And now we finished installing, and we're about to commission, hopefully before Christmas, a plant that can process 10 tons of waste a day and has the capacity to produce 3 million pieces of eco-packaging a month. So hopefully by January, we will be able to produce 3 million. Thank you. And that will be our first step, I think. The sky is the limit.
Great, and congratulations. I hope anybody who would want such a product, you're welcome to engage with Anita, and hopefully it will become mainstream. Now we are getting the final second round of questions, but let's try keep it short and sweet so that we can also hear from the crowd. And I'll come to you, Dr. Ayub, in a very short and quick answer. Next week, I know you're traveling to Busan for the fifth and final negotiations for the Plastics Treaty. There is a big debate around which packaging material should be prioritized for elimination. Listing is one of the issues. In Kenya, there is already a prioritized list of about 13 under the Kenya Plastics Pact. In your opinion, and as an experienced environmentalist over the years, are you considering supporting the listing of products that we can clearly see is problematic and needs to be eliminated from the market? In a very short and brief response.
Thank you. That's a good question. Last week, we met as the Africa group of negotiators, and we agreed that we are going to list 2 items. That is chemicals of concern that have been listed in other conventions. It will form the initial list. The other item we agreed on is listing those single-use plastics, which are under the Plastic Pact. However, we are meeting now at in Machakos. That is where I came from. That's why I don't have a suit on a Thursday. We are discussing the Kenyan position, and we are again revisiting that list. I think the Kenyan position is, I cannot communicate it now because we are finalizing the meeting tomorrow. That is when we will know whether that list, we will continue supporting Africa or we have a different position as Kenya. So for now, we
use also polymer-based, sugarcane-based caps, which also is recyclable and has the full circularity. And these are initiatives, Dr. Ayub, that we have done as first movers without expecting any incentivization, but for the sake of the future, to ensure that these are sustainable and also affordable to the consumer, we need to make sure that we incentivize companies like us. We are 26% grams less than a PET bottle in terms of plastic. And these are all initiations that require a lot of investment, and it requires also the right infrastructure as I mentioned. And these cannot go hand in hand with an EPR system that would give an oversight of the redesign and reuse initiatives of the companies, and also promote more innovation into that sector, so that it doesn't become, just a levy that companies have to implement, but rather use it to their advantage to actually promote sustainability.
Okay, thank you. Sila?
Thank you, Alex. Most of our products, if you say 70% of our products are associated with brand owners for us. So it was an easy conversation for us with the brand owners to discuss with them from the design, from lightweighting, recycling, and most of all the panel members here and in the medium here with all the people know plastic is one of the efficient recyclability product because it consumes less power, less water. And it has infinite cycles. It can keep go on the life. Because we don't want to get into buying this biodegradable plastics, because at the end of the day, it ends up with microplastics into the earth. So let us keep it very simple and clear that we have to engage with our value consumers in the form of our brand owners to get this developed. I think that's the most important thing. That's what we are doing at the moment. And the most important of all this circular economy we talk, one thing we need to always keep it in mind is, it is not just recycling products or anything or reusing. It is you are keeping your economy in a very healthy state. Your state economy I'm talking about in financial terms, right? Don't keep importing raw materials, virgin materials. So you take that local waste, recycle, bring it, and convert that into any other product, right? It doesn't need to be perfectly back to the same product. Like example, our IML yogurt cups, right? It goes to the market. When it comes back, we produce crates for agricultural sector, right? Using the same 100% we consume that and we produce it. So this is a form of an economy we are clicking in. So we don't have dependency on foreign currency, huge import cost, everything on that side. And that is where this eco-levy is going to play a big part through this Sustainable Waste Management Act. I think that's one of the key takeaways I would take from this Sustainable Waste Management Act, which is coming into policy now.
And thank you for reflecting on that better side of eco-levy. So to Unilever, quickly, I know the end of life of your products is mainly undertaken by your PRO, but how can you, as a company, collaborate with the recyclers to enable this sustainable packaging management that Mr. Muthu is actually talking about?
All right, so again, 3 acronyms, CCI, okay? Meaning capacity building, capability, and investment, all right? So I'll give you an example of what Unilever has done with Mr. Green as an example. The circularity that we created with those 3 products was as a result of joint trials with Mr. Green, a very strategic plastic recycler in Nairobi. But it took, as I said, a lot of effort, a lot of R&D input, and a lot of investments based on our Unilever internal targets for plastic reduction by 2025. Okay, we need to have 100% of our packaging being reusable, recyclable, or compostable. Capability is about the SMEs or like-minded players like Seal Africa who have been great partners for Unilever, understanding the vision for circularity and therefore trying to adjust their systems to be able to address the needs of the businesses. And then how do we then fund those who are willing to walk the talk? Unilever, Ernst & Young, and FCDO, which is a British agency, have pulled together funds through a program called Transform, where every year we give some amount of money to startups who are willing to walk the journey of sustainability. This year, plastic recyclers are part of the entries that we will support. So other than just doing the commercial side, we need to put investments aside to trigger investment around circularity and track the impact that it is delivering.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Now, in the interest of time, I beg your pardon, Anita and Dr. Koimbori. Let me have this last question directed to RAP, and then we'll open up to the floor, and hopefully we can get a response from both of you. And RAP, there's always that discussion around what is the consumer responsibility in all this. So what do you reflect on the role of consumers in this whole discussion? Because it's not only an environmental issue, but also a behavioral issue to even adopt these sustainable products that are put in the market. It's not that they are not there, they are there, but what would you say is the role of all the stakeholders, including NGOs, the media, to drive this consumer advocacy? You know, quick response.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate quickly and just say I don't think it's the responsibility of the consumer in this argument. I think it's the responsibility of everybody else along the value chain to make it easy for the consumer to not even have a choice to make sustainable choices. It's a novelty at the moment that we can talk about making sustainable choices as if there aren't enough or as if it's a premium or a luxury, and I think it's everybody else's responsibility to be making that the norm and making it too expensive, unaffordable, and almost embarrassing not to just pick the choices that are good for the environment. And it's everybody here, and unfortunately we don't have the recyclers represented, but also I think that we'd be remiss not to talk about the role that EPR can play in supporting the informal sector, who in Africa play a huge role in ensuring that our waste is collected, is segregated, and that there is a value added to that. So I think that there is a role for us to play as individuals, as stakeholders. Okay, we are all consumers in this room, but not from that angle, but to think about how can EPR help to manage the finances and make sure that those people are being paid fairly for the work that they're doing to ensure that our environment is not left a mess, and that we are making sure that there is recycled content available to feed back into packaging, that there is sorted well, that there is money for the infrastructure that is needed, and to make those choices easier for everybody, in short.
Thank you. That was very nice twist to it. Now we want to open up the floor to the audience. I know we can't miss 1 or 2, 3 questions from the floor. So Kelvin, I'll pick on you because you're young and you can jump onto the mic very quickly. So I have a question from the middle section, and the gentleman in a blue suit, and then right back out there. So we can start here because it's nearer, and then here please. So keep it very short and precise.
Sure. My name is Teddy. I represent the community, the consumer. I'm the chairman for Nyayo Estate. Now, good conversation on packaging. One question to Dr. You've got, I've been to the plant, the gentleman from Unilever, Mr. Green. They've got the pallets, I saw the resin. So the resin pallets, is that a raw material or is it a finished product in relation to packaging? I'm sure that's a big deal because it's a conversation that is going on out there. Sha, your product is amazing. As a consumer, I'll definitely go for it, and I'll challenge most of the manufacturers. Unilever, she's seated next to you. You need to think about that, yeah. I've seen. Now this question comes to Unilever. How many cycles are these products of yours? I've seen the Vim and all that. How many cycles will they go before they're rendered totally unrecyclable, or they can no longer be, because at the end of the day, this recycling process has a twist to it. At some point, it falls off. Finally, Seal Africa. That is a very good twist to this. Why do we think recycling? Because you think you're now saving and you're saving the planet, but there's energy involved and there's logistics. Why about we do reusing? And I really love the word reuse. So in the 5 R's, I'll go with the rethink, redesign, reuse before you get the recycle. And everyone is jumping to recycle because we don't want to think harder on the other aspects. This brings me to consumers here. In your standard takeaway lunch from the fast food joints that we frequent, the amount of packaging is more than the food. We all know that. I've been challenging some of the multinationals, I won't mention their names here, but it's quite annoying that we used to have a very robust, reusable packaging, including the beverages that we consume. This glass, it goes back, returnable bottle, it is refilled. Someone decided plastic is better. And now we are thinking about how do we segregate, how do we recycle, how do we do this and this and this. Why can't we just fall back? In the beginning of this session, I think someone mentioned, do you want to go back 40 years back or do you want to go future? I think we have to reflect from the future, from the past as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Teddy, for that list of questions. Now we have Gisore and who else? Who will take the last one? If you promise to keep it short, otherwise I'll cut you. Gisore.
Hello everyone, I'm Gisore Jabuti. So my question first of all goes to Mr. Ayub. I could really like to ask about the EPR. How will you make sure that the waste speakers are at the center of this decision making, and also the waste speakers are engaged to get the incentives rightly, rather than for us to have few PROs engaging 1 CBO or 2 CBOs, and then we call it all of it to be an EPR package. And also to the Unilever guy, I could really like to ask that we have a lot of such as the packagings which are problematic and single-use plastic. We cannot collect them as waste pickers because they don't have a buyback system. How will you ensure that they have a buyback system which is workable, and also when you trace down to the ground, you'll find the waste pickers working on it? So I could really like you guys to address how the waste pickers will get the incentives rightly. Thank you. The Secretary General for the Kenya National Waste Pickers Welfare Association. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have 3 questions. DG Emeritus, just one question in less than 30 seconds. Then we go to Laura and finally up there. Then we'll go back to wrap up.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Michael Koech. And I just want to talk about EPR and the Act on Waste Management. And what I want to refer particularly at the Nairobi River, or Nairobi rivers. Many efforts have been done in the past.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
Just go straight to the question.
Okay. How can the EPR assist in cleaning up the Nairobi rivers. Secondly, is that the model of Unilever, how can that be applied so that it is spread throughout the industries and throughout the consumers so that we can benefit from those efforts? Those are enough for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Laura?
Yeah, as a small business owner, I would love to understand how the EPR is going to be practically implemented and how that will affect me and my business, and whether there is any organizations that are planning to do information sessions that we could have access to, just so that we can bring the message home and make it easy for businesses like myself to be compliant with this new regulation.
Finally, up there.
Thank you. My question goes to Tetra Pak. I'm doing sugarcane juice, and I'm also doing sugarcane blocks. And recently, I found sugarcane sugarcane cups in Carrefour. I'm wondering whether those sugarcane cups are from Tetra Pak, or if you are doing sugarcane cups in Kenya. Can I link up with you so that because that is my interest to use the sugarcane paper cups. So, and then again, if the ones at Carrefour are being used by recycling, by bagasse, how come they are too expensive?
Thank you very much. Now to my able panelists. I know you have picked a question or two from there. I'll start with far right. Please give a response to any of the questions and your final comment or reflection, Ravi.
Thank you. That's a very good question. Why we do, then we talk about reuse, repurpose, recycle, right? That's a very interesting question. So like, as you also mentioned, that how you reflect your past and look into your future, right? Our past was, most of the time, we have been reusing. Now, we are talking about when we came to a stage that, oh, we have a blend of reuse, and then we need to see how we can get into the recycling. So we can't stop looking to the future. We have to definitely look into the recycling. At the same time, bring in the consumer behavior. I think that's the most important. If you want to encourage more and more reusability, that means when you're moving from linear to circular economy, right? Linear economy to circular economy, reuse and repurpose will come a major part in the business model. So that brings in a lot of consumer sensitization programs. I think that's what the brand owners and the responsible converters we play in the market to bring into the awareness programs of that. So we depository system, collection management, reuse and recycle. So when we talk about recycle, yes, we all started now recycling, but do we have enough capacity in this country to recycle everything what we dispose? No, definitely. So that comes a lot of financial investments coming into the business. I see there is a lot of encouraging discussions around investments in recycling product line, not just from the brand owners, even from the global funds, right? Okay. So I think these are some good encouraging signs. We look positive and we hope for best. That's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ravi. Anita, any responses or quick final comments?
Yeah, I think the question on bagasse cups was directed to GreenStem. Yes, the ones in Carrefour are most likely imported. I don't know, either from India or China. We did win an award from USAID, and we do have product molds included in that grant. So hopefully next year we will be able to diversify our product range to include cups and more food service type products. Thank you.
Joseph?
Thank you. So Teddy, I think there are two questions. First being, do we consider the pellets raw materials? Yes, they are. And that's why waste pickers are a crucial part of our value chain. In fact, as we design a business model for circularity, they are the core part of how that value filters back to them. That is with rigids. So I'll come to flexes, which was also asked. Your second question, how many cycles? Probably 7. But understand that Unilever does not go to the dump site or to your household to pick its brands exclusively and then go and trace how many times it will come back. We pick everything. As long as it's the same material type with our canisters, it doesn't matter whether it's competition. Our work is to recycle plastics. Okay? But if you are to trace one canister, it will probably do 7 times. There's a question on sachets. This is a complex one. Sachets are really, really complex because of the weight and how you deliver the incentives that will make sense to the collectors. We have already tried pilots with some of our strategic partners where we are converting them to gunny bags or, you know, what you call gunias, all right? But we are not there yet. And that's why systemic collaboration is important. As I said, we will not go and pick only our products by the time we make those trials. We need everybody to jump into the ship. Final question was, how can we scale? How can we share these examples of circularity with others? We've done enough consumer awareness, and the good thing with consumers, they are receptive. When we tried the first canister of Vim, it went off-white. The virgin one was super white, the other one was off-white, and we thought they would reject it. They didn't. Yeah. Okay, so consumer awareness. But more importantly, government support. Moving plastics from Kisumu to Nairobi, each county you pass by, you must pay cess, duty. Yeah. Who will recycle if you're paying duty for recyclability? It's difficult, okay? Yeah. So I'm saying circular economy is possible in a nutshell. Let's all jump on let's all walk the talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Talia.
I don't think any of the questions were directed to me, so I'm just going to quickly speak to the question from Laura about the support that businesses of any sizes should be able to get through once EPR is in place or in the lead up to it. I think that's one of the benefits of having PROs, is that part of their operational licenses will require them to run consumer awareness campaigns, but also to engage with businesses and to run working groups, which, yes, in some countries you have to pay membership of, but I think that's based on the size of your business, so hopefully it's reflective and then accessible for you. And it's those forums that you can use to then ask questions and understand the infrastructure and what's going to be expected of you down the line. So I would say that should be something to look out for. And if not, and if you are able to, and it's your questions around plastics, then you should be considering becoming a member of a plastics pact, because then you have access to both the Secretariat and the members within that. And also, Kenya Plastics Pact is a member of the wider Plastics Pact network, which is a global network of plastic pacts that are sharing learnings and best practice of similar situations, similar challenges, and coming together to discuss that and then implement similar opportunities in their own countries.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
Yeah, I'll just take 1 minute. To Prof, there's a question Prof had asked in terms of EPR and how it will help Nairobi River restoration and the rest. KEPSA, we are part of the Nairobi River restoration. We have been part of that exercise. And what we see EPR doing, in fact, when you're talking about EPR, we like to also rope in the issue of CSR, the corporate social responsibility, and even the consumer one. So all this, when they work together within that nexus, they help to actually curtail the end product, which will now be dumped into the waterways. So obviously the EPR, we're looking at it as a safeguard, as we are saying, in terms of actually now creating that stick in terms of penalizing those people who are actually not being able to look at this product from the value chain, from the start to the end, where will it fall out. So I'm looking at it in terms of it will obviously ensure that there is less waste being dumped into the Nairobi River, which is very key. And then the other question in terms of EPR and how, what we are doing in terms of sensitizing, educating the masses. At KEPSA, we work with the PROs, such as PACPRO. The CEO is there. You can reach out to her. and also KPRO is another one. So these two PROs, we work with them hand in hand because they are very key. When it comes to actually giving out this information on matters plastic, on matters how we can be able to put it more in the loop. Because remember, even when you're talking about plastic, we need to look at it in terms of how can we earn from it. People are not aware that you can actually earn carbon credits from it, because with plastic, you need to actually put your case in terms of, is that process you're doing helping to actually reduce, avoid carbon, or remove the carbon? And with plastic recycling, the circular economy just a bit, in terms of recycling and putting it in the loop, you're actually helping to reduce the amount of energy that could have been used to make that plastic as a virgin product. So when you put it in the loop, you have actually reduced energy consumption, which is also, if there is proper recording, it can actually show that you have actually helped to avoid carbon. So let me stop there because there's a lot I could actually say about this space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. They say once the government speaks, then the meeting is over. So we'll reserve the last comment for Dr. Ayub. Shireen, any final thoughts and comments or responses in a minute, please?
Yes, so just I'd like to remind everyone we should not leave anybody behind. The small and medium companies are part of the ecosystem. We need to enable them to be part of this important initiative. I remind everyone that our long-standing partner, PACPRO, is here. They can provide the awareness sessions, the knowledge you need, and also be part of our initiative that we are doing with them. So we also are helping into the responsible waste disposal at home, and we keep on also bringing to the table the housewives and the homes and residential. My last plea is for the government. We need to make sure that we transition into a sustainable and EPR. That means it needs to be transitioned gradually to consumer and customers, as well as the entire ecosystem. We need to have sound targets. We have actually in Kenya only 10% recycling for the LBP, which is the liquid board packaging, and we aim to reach the 100, of course, but reaching a 100 when there is still a lot of work on the infrastructure might be counterproductive. So we count on NEMA, of course, to bring us to safe haven with the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Ari, you can.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I had many questions, some clarifications that I had on the floor, which I'll pass through very quickly. One of them is, there was a mention of voluntary schemes. We have tried this since 2018, that is 2018 up to 2022. They didn't work. Actually, they overloaded some companies, others were joyriders. So that era is gone. So in our history, we can clearly say we started there, but now the train has already gone. Teddy asked a question about pellets, and I know he's coming from Section 6, Section 4 of the EPR law, which says who does the law target? And one of the targeted people is everybody importing items in Schedule 1. And one of the items is plastics. What is a plastic? Is it a glass? Is it a jar? Is it a PET bottle? I mean, if you are importing pellets, definitely pellet is we know you are going to use it as a raw material, but when it was packaged when you bought it from the other shop, what did that person sell? It is a product. And so that is subject to the $1 fee. Fortunately, our dollar, the way it is prescribed, it is per item. That means it is one bag. One bag of pellets will be subject to 150 shillings or $1. And so, as of now, pellets are products. and so they are subject to the $1. Some people are worried about the implementation of the Sustainable Waste Management Act, especially the trucks carrying waste. And we were waiting for some directive from the minister about the color code, which I've seen in some papers. I've not seen the Gazette notice, but I've seen like he commented about that, especially the color bins. I saw green, blue, and red. So if that is true, then what my department will do is to go to where the trucks pass and do enforcement. Nobody should carry mixed waste. At the same time, the county governments have to also not mixed, even at the dump site. Okay? So that is how we intend to implement that law. And then the awareness will be pushed back to you as a customer so that you don't mix your waste at home. I wanted to comment about incentives because I had it. Now, who has more power in asking for incentives? They are there in the law. We have it in the Sustainable Waste Management Act. In MCA since 1999, incentives have been mentioned. But the requirement is that you negotiate through the Ministry of Environment, through National Treasury, and you can see the journey is quite long. But the private sector in Kenya has one advantage. They meet the head of state through the private sector allowed tables with the head of state. Who is the final say in budgeting in Kenya? It is the head of state. So if you could have that candid dialogue with the head of state, especially on incentives, I'm sure they could be considered in the Finance Act, and you will enjoy it. If we rely on NEMA, what will happen is that, you know, our DG has to talk to the minister through the PS, then our minister talks to Treasury, and you know, whenever you make the journey very long, somewhere along the middle, whatever the demand becomes not urgent, not very urgent. Then about the waste pickers engagement, the law says, the regulations say that through the EPR plan, one of the documents we expect is financial flow across the value chain. That includes the waste pickers. So you are not forgotten. EPR, how we assist in Nairobi River, we are already there. We have already engaged 29 companies, told them to clean the river, another batch of 85. Currently we have 77 that are cleaning River Kandisi. River Kandisi passes through Ororua Forest, coming from Gong. Those 77 companies, they have requested us to clear them because they claim that they have cleaned the river. And this week, we sent a letter to them telling them that we can only release them on one condition, that they hold a workshop where they bring in the local communities that they have engaged so that we make sure that their plan is sustainable. We don't want that river to be dirty again. We are not for cleanups. Cleanups are not sustainable. We are for practical take-back schemes. Okay? So those are the ones we are looking for. So we want to hear from the community whether that take-back scheme has been established and it is going to work in that region. Fortunately, the EPR regulation is in place, so any kind of investment now is not work in futurity. Finally, cess. Cess has been mentioned on the floor here. We know this is a challenge. Fortunately, in the Sustainable Waste Management Act, there was a committee that was established called the Waste Management Council, which was supposed to discuss all teething problems within waste management. And the private sector is a member. The Council of Governors is a member. And because that is where the challenge is, we thought that when the council is in place, you could discuss that issue. Because the national government cannot direct the county governments. So, please, impress on our ministry, our minister, to have the council in place, so because you are members, and then you can discuss at that level. I think those are the questions that I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daktari. And indeed, at the end of the day, all that we desire, whether you are in government, or you're a brand owner, or you're a waste picker, or an NGO like myself, is a clean, safe environment, which is guaranteed within our constitution. So we hope that this new dispensation, where we have EPR, shall actually guarantee us that. Thank you very much to my eminent panel. I know we are due for lunch in a few minutes, so we will hand over a small package, courtesy of the organizers, and also invite you for the afternoon session and later in the evening for the Circular Economy Awards to recognize some of the front runners in the circular economy space. So a round of applause to our panelists as we break this first session of the day. Thank you very much.